Let's begin with our top story coming out of the U.S., where the Senate has approved the Republican plan for ground rules governing the impeachment trial of President Donald Trump. Under those rules, the majority leader, House managers, and Trump's lawyers will each have 24 hours over 3 days to argue their cases. Senators will have 16 hours to ask questions submitted in writing.
President Donald Trump was impeached last month on charges of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Today, after 12 hours squabbling, Republican senators blocked 4 separate motions from Democratic leader Chuck Schumer. The Republican also rejected requests for subpoenas seeking the testimony of officials, including former National Security Advisor John Bolton. House impeachment manager Gerald Nedler told Republicans they showed all the signs of being ready to end the president's cover-up.
The president does not want you to hear from Ambassador Bolton because the president does not want the American people to hear first-hand testimony about the misconduct at the heart of this trial. The question is whether the Senate will be complicit in the president's crimes by covering them up.
Bolton said he would be willing to testify if subpoenaed by the Senate, but the chief White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, replied to Nedler with a retort of his own.
The only one who should be embarrassed, Mr. Nadler, is you, for the way you've addressed this body. This is the United States Senate. You're not in charge here.
Earlier, the World Economic Forum in Davos, Trump dismissed the accusation against him and said the trial is a disgraceful witch hunt.
Well, the U.S. says China's secrecy around its growing nuclear stockpiles is a serious threat to strategic stability. The U.S. Disarmament Ambassador Robert Wood said China's atomic stocks will double over the next decade. Wood urged Beijing to join trilateral nuclear arms talks with Washington and Moscow. He said the U.S. had discussed the potential talks in a security meeting with Russia last week. Wood said it is imperative for global security that the Chinese come to the negotiating table. Earlier, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov confirmed Moscow will take part in the trilateral talks, but he said Russia will not force China to change its current position. Now, North Korea says it may be compelled to seek a new path after the U.S. ignored its deadline for nuclear talks. Pyongyang said it no longer felt bound by its commitments, which included a halt to nuclear testing and ballistic missile tests. The North's mission to the UN said amid Washington's hostile policy, denuclearization of the Korean peninsula will never be achieved. Ju Yong-chol accused the U.S. of applying the most brutal and inhuman sanctions at the UN-backed Conference on Disarmament. Choi criticized the U.S. for conducting joint military exercises with South Korea on the divided peninsula. The U.S. Disarmament Ambassador Robert Wood voiced concern at Pyongyang's latest remarks. He said Washington hoped the North would return to the negotiating table. Now, the Taliban say a comprehensive ceasefire will be declared in Afghanistan after the peace deal is signed with the U.S. Washington and the Taliban are currently holding a fresh round of talks in Qatar's capital, Doha. In an interview, the group's spokesperson, Sohail Shaheen, said negotiators are seeking to create a safe environment for the signing of a peace agreement. He said the Taliban will provide a safe passage to the U.S. and other foreign forces following the deal. Rejecting media reports, the spokesperson said it is the first time the two sides are negotiating the possibility of a complete ceasefire. NATO Chief Jens Stoltenberg has said Turkey is crucial in the fight against ISIS. Speaking at the EU Parliament, Stoltenberg said Ankara has suffered more terrorist attacks than any other NATO ally. He said Turkey is the only ally directly involved in the conflict since it borders Syria and Iraq. Acknowledging Ankara's role, Stoltenberg said the progress and achievements made by NATO in the fight would not have been possible without Turkey. Stoltenberg said NATO is also extending support to Operation Sophia in the Mediterranean to crack down on refugee smuggling routes. Now, hearing 144 petitions, the Indian Supreme Court has refused to stay the controversial Citizenship Act. The law has sparked countrywide protests as it is widely considered anti-Muslim and racist. In its interim verdict, the top court has granted the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government 4 weeks to respond to the petitions. The court also said a 5-judge constitution bench will give an interim order on some of the petitions. The petitioners contend the new law is illegal and stands against the basics of the Constitution. They argue that the law is against the right to equality, as it will grant citizenship on the basis of religion. Meanwhile, 9 student unions in northeastern universities have called for a total shutdown of institutions over the top court's decision. Now, Prime Minister Imran Khan has said his government is turning Pakistan into a haven for global investors and businesses. He was speaking at the Pakistan Strategy Dialogue on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos. The Prime Minister said the country's economy has stabilized and 2020 will be the year of Pakistan's progress. Khan said the current government's policies are bearing fruit as the country has improved its ranking in the ease of doing business. He said foreign investment in Pakistan has jumped 200% over the past year.
The whole idea is to now incentivize businesses, industry, remove hurdles in their way, change the mindset from the socialist mindset, which was envious of profit making, change it to the more people make profits, the more investors come to your country.
Well, for more on Prime Minister Khan's Davos engagements, we're joined now by Pakistan's Foreign Minister, Shah Mehmood Qureshi, who is also currently in Davos with the Prime Minister. Foreign Minister Qureshi, we appreciate your time here at Indus News. How successful do you think Davos has been for Pakistan so far?
Well, it's a good visit in the sense that Pakistan is getting an opportunity to engage with the movers and the shakers of the world, the economic world. Pakistan's Prime Minister is getting an opportunity to share with the corporate sector the economic reforms undertaken by his government. He inherited a very difficult economic situation. The reforms undertaken have stabilized the economy. We have now a stabilization program in place, and things are stabilizing. Now, our next objective is to promote investments into Pakistan, to attract people to Pakistan so that they should come and invest in Pakistan. For that, we have undertaken steps in making things easier to do business in Pakistan, open up and facilitate things for the private sector, give them confidence. We have spoken to President Trump yesterday to revise the travel advisory so that businessmen can come to Pakistan. We are also asking friends across the globe to help Pakistan get out of the grey list because of the measures, the comprehensive measures we've taken to deal with terror financing and money laundering, so that once you're off the list, that will also facilitate and promote business activity in the country. So here is a good opportunity for the Prime Minister and his economic team, his finance advisor, his advisor on commerce, to meet with their counterparts. Mr. Razak Daud had a meeting with Secretary Wilbur Ross. Advisor Hafiz Sheikh had a meeting with the Treasury Secretary of the U.S. And it was a good opportunity to showcase Pakistan.
Foreign Minister Qureshi, I want to go back to that, your mention of the meeting with President Trump, the Prime Minister's meeting that is with President Trump. What can you tell us about what they discussed regarding Kashmir and Afghanistan?
Obviously, the Prime Minister shared with him his concerns vis-a-vis the situation in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The situation was never good, but it has considerably deteriorated since the 5th of August. They were able to discuss the continuous lockdown. Now it's entered its 6th month. The human rights violations that are taking place there, how the ordinary citizen is being maltreated, how the Indians are reacting to the Citizen Amendment Act and the NRC and the protests all over India, the slump in the Indian economy, the slowdown in the Indian economy, and all these three factors, the situation in Indian-occupied Kashmir, the reaction against the Citizen Amendment Act, and the slowdown, economic slowdown, is becoming a serious issue for the Indian government, and they're looking for some diversionary tactic. They want to divert attention, and we have this serious fear of a false flag operation. They could undertake a false flag operation in Jammu and Kashmir and blame Pakistan for it. That is a serious concern, and the Prime Minister shared that with President Trump.
And just finally, of course, going back to Afghanistan, the Prime Minister did mention how peace in Afghanistan is very important for Pakistan. What more can you tell us about that?
Obviously, Pakistan has facilitated the process. All expectations of Pakistan we were able to meet. We were asked to convince the Taliban to come to the negotiating table. We were able to convince them, and they're on the negotiating table. Then it was expected that the delegation so constituted should be authoritative enough. Now everybody recognizes that the delegation that was constituted to talk to them was authoritative and could take decisions. The expectation was to get the two hostages released. Pakistan successfully negotiated the release of those two hostages. We've also been counseling the Taliban for a reduction in violence, and they have now nodded positively that they are willing to reduce violence. Hopefully, Pakistan expects that will lead to an agreement leading to reduction in violence, and that leading to an initiation towards intra-Afghan dialogue.
Very well, Foreign Minister Qureshi. We'll leave it there at that. But of course, we appreciate you taking your time out of a busy schedule to speak with us here at Indus News. That was Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mehmood Qureshi speaking to us live there from Davos. We're going to go now into our short break. Viewers, we'll be back after that with plenty more news. Stay tuned. Let's start off this segment in Iraq, where Prime Minister Adel Abdelmalek says firing rockets at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad is unacceptable, regardless of the intentions. In a statement, Mahdi decried authorities who allow attacks at the American Embassy in Iraq. The Prime Minister said the attacks are incorrect and painful. Yesterday, 3 rockets landed near the U.S. Embassy in the Green Zone without causing casualties. No group has so far claimed responsibility for the attack that came after growing tensions between the U.S. and Iran. Israeli troops, meanwhile, have shot dead 3 Palestinians near the Gaza border. According to reports, Gaza police say the civilians had no link to any militant group. However, the Israeli army said the men were suspected militants as they tried to enter Israel under the cover of stormy weather. It claimed the Palestinians threw an explosive towards them. The fatalities are the first in cross-border fighting since last November, when a 2-day surge in violence left 34 Palestinians dead. According to the UN, Israeli forces killed over 100 Palestinians in Gaza last year and 24 in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. Lebanon has formed a new government under Prime Minister Hassan Diab, ending months of deadlock and violent protests. The presidency announced the government after Hezbollah and its allies clinched a coalition deal on a cabinet. The new cabinet is made up of 20 ministers, mostly technocrats, with economist Ghazi Wazni as finance minister. Lebanon has been without an effective government since caretaker Prime Minister Saad Hariri resigned in October last year. President Michel Aoun nominated Diab as premier last month after efforts failed to strike a deal with Hariri. Prime Minister Diab said his government will immediately start working to recover from the economic crisis.
As for the economic situation, I repeat, it will be our priority from tomorrow in order to deal as soon as possible with all the issues related to the economy and the banking sector, the exchange rate, and all these issues. You need to give us some time. Achievement comes with wisdom and time. We will surely be fast but not hasty.
Well, in its latest sanctions on Venezuela, the U.S. has blacklisted 15 aircraft operated by the state-owned oil company. The U.S. Treasury Department says the aircraft are used to transport members of the Venezuelan government. In a statement, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said these aircraft also flew in an unsafe manner in proximity to U.S. military aircraft in international airspace. Earlier, Pompeo had warned that Washington would take more action to support Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido. After killing 9 people and infecting 440 others in China, the mysterious and fatal new coronavirus has now been detected in the U.S. The Centers for Disease Control said the virus was diagnosed in an American resident who arrived in Seattle from China. More now about the epidemic in this report.
Worldwide efforts to control the new coronavirus outbreak have been intensified. Apart from China and the US, 2 cases have been identified in Thailand, 1 in Japan, 1 in South Korea, and 1 in Taiwan. Chinese health officials say the virus could mutate and spread further, confirming that it is spreading by human transmission.
We will allocate the best medical resources and experts and integrate Chinese and Western medicines to minimize deaths. We will increase funding to ensure timely treatment for the patients. We will also take care of medical staff, provide adequate logistical support, and arrange reasonable rest for them, especially their personal protection to prevent medical staff from being infected during treatment.
Within China, the virus has spread to Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, with Macau also reporting its first confirmed case. Meanwhile, North Korea has blocked foreign tourists crossing the border from China as a preventive measure.
Coronavirus 2019 is now a notifiable condition in New South Wales, which means that patients who are suspected of having that infection must be notified by their doctor or laboratory or hospital to public health. Under the Public Health Act, if necessary, people can be placed in isolation.
The WHO is holding an emergency meeting later today to determine whether to declare a global public health emergency.
On to the UK now, where the House of Lords has approved Boris Johnson's Brexit bill, but not before making changes to the legislation. It voted in favour of 5 amendments over 2 days of debate, leading the new government to its first parliamentary defeat.
The upper chamber voted in favour of a move to protect the rights of European Union citizens in Britain after Brexit. The changes included backing the Dubs Amendment to protect the rights of refugee children. The PM office said they were disappointed by the move, but planned to overturn them when the bill returned to the Commons. The amendments are expected to be voted down by MPs, likely due to the Conservative strong majority in the House. This means the bill will bounce back between the 2 houses until both sides agree on the wording. The EU withdrawal bill ensures UK leaves the European Union on January 31st with a deal.
36 people have been killed in a reported terrorist attack on 2 markets in San Matenga province of Burkina Faso. The government says 3 others were wounded after militants raided Nagraogo and Alamo villages. It said armed militants killed 32 civilians when they attacked and burned the market in Nagraogo village. Later, they killed 4 more people in Alamo village. Hundreds of people have fled the area and have taken refuge in the nearby city of Kaya. British rock star Ozzy Osbourne has revealed he has Parkinson's disease. Last year, the musician, who is famous for the heavy metal band Black Sabbath, postponed a world tour due to health issues. In a TV interview, the 71-year-old rock star said that he has received the diagnosis in February 2019 after he fell at home and had to have neck surgery. The musician says he's been working to recover to be able to perform in front of fans again. Osbourne said he is now on medication for Parkinson's and nerve pain.
I can die twice now. I've died once or twice before, but I mean, it's been the story of my life. When I came off the quad bike a few years ago, my heart stopped twice on the way to the hospital. I must have just like a cat 7 lives. I hope so. It's been a great journey this year. This year has been amazing for us.
A Dutch startup company is trying to fight air pollution with a next-generation air pollution mask. The company claims the new mask will be able to detect dust particles, alert users to real-time pollution levels. More now about these smart masks in this report.
The World Health Organization says 4.6 million people die each year from causes directly attributable to air pollution. The Dutch company called AirBliss Plus has come up with an advanced air pollution mask to combat the problem. The smart mask features an inside fan system for filtration and inhalation, and LED lights to alert users about the high pollution levels. The mask will eventually then map out a route with least polluted air levels.
Our goal is one day to be able to deliver enough data to have a reliable pollution map. And when you want to go from A to B, you don't necessarily only go for the shortest or the fastest way, you always go for the less polluted way.
The company intends to target markets in highly polluted cities in Asia, the Middle East, and in California, while wildfires have blanketed the state in smoke, causing air quality to drop tremendously.
We're very, very excited to have a product that is not going to be like any other mask that you're going to drop after 5 minutes and become just another gadget. We want to be the solution for mass adoption, because the comfort is key for prolonged hours, and you're happy of the user experience and you're happy to repeat it the next day. Okay.
The company plans to launch a Kickstarter in summer 2020.
A 17-year-old Indian girl has retained her crown as the teen with the world's longest hair. It has been more than a decade since she stopped cutting her tresses following a bad experience at a salon.
Neelanshi Patel, from the small town of Mudasa in Gujarat state, remains a cut above the rest. She has broken her own Guinness World Record for the longest hair.
I set the Guinness Book of World Records in longest hair on teenagers in 2018. At that time, my hair length is 170.5 centimeter, and I again broke my own record, and I set the record of hair length 190 centimeters.
She is nicknamed Rapunzel by her friends and schoolmates after the long flowing hair of the princess in the Brothers Grimm fairy tale. Her proud father said his only child's locks had turned her from a local celebrity into an international one.
My mom always helps me for growing me the hair, and she never feels difficulty about that. In fact, it's her dream that I can Guinness World Records title. And also my father always helps me and always supports me for growing me the hair.
Patel has to wear high-heeled shoes if she does not want her hair to touch the ground. Apart from that, the only time she has significant trouble is while swimming.
South Korea's annual economic growth for 2019 has hit the lowest level since the financial crisis in 2009. Seoul's central bank says the GDP expanded only 2% annually amid sagging exports and global trade tensions. The bank said net government contribution to growth came to 1.5%, the biggest portion since a decade. But it said the government stimulus helped the economy post its fastest fourth quarter growth in more than 2 years. Stock markets across Europe are trading slightly higher after recovering from yesterday's losses. Investors are treading cautiously over fears of the spreading coronavirus that may impact major stocks. Frankfurt's DAX is trading about 0.5% higher. London's FTSE 100 has gained a fraction after Berkeley stocks jumped 5% to a record high. The CAC 40 in Paris is also trading fractionally higher. In Asia, Hong Kong's Hang Seng led the gains, closing over 1% higher. Seoul's Kospi gained over 1% after South Korea posted the fastest fourth quarter growth since 2017. The Shanghai Composite also posted modest gains as market sentiments turned mildly negative owing to the new coronavirus. Time now to find out what the weather is like around the world. And with that, you're all caught up. Thank you for watching this bulletin here on Indus News.